What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the stream. Welcome to the Knights. My name is Derek Melinda, and I'm really happy to be here with you all this evening. It's a snowy one here in Northeast Ohio, for sure. So, yeah, we don't have much of an agenda here tonight. So we're just kind of here to hang out, chat about role-playing games. There was a little bit of news today in the role-playing game sphere, so we can definitely talk about that if you want. If you want to talk about D&D, if you want to talk about Pathfinder, just go ahead and leave a question and below. I will try to find it all. I may not have my usual army of mods, so hopefully I can identify them. I'm working on getting some sort of chat bot or one of those devices that we can use to sort of build like a queue so that people can listen to us. There we go. Well, who are we sitting on? What do we got tonight? Let's take a look. For starters, I just want to say welcome to anybody from the Patreon who's with us today. I want to say hey to Ben. I see that Ben's here. Brian, Griffin, Matthew. Great to see you all. And Aeon Rider, welcome back. Walker, glad to see you as well. Yeah. Anthony, great to see you. Griffin says that this should be good. He is in withdrawal from Knights content. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's
GM Scott tipped $5, just testing the messaging system.
Well, thank you for just testing the messaging system. We appreciate it. Let's actually change that a little bit. There we go. Actually, that was a good test of the messaging system. I had it a little bit too far down to the right, so it cut off your name. So I want to say thank you very much for that. Very much appreciate you. And again, we're not. I'm not expecting a big stream like we have been doing here. This is way more of a casual hangout. So we'll get back to our spells and magic type streams here, and we'll figure it out from there. But yeah, we'll get that going. I'm going to change one thing really quick. So give me 1 second. Okay. All right. Thank you. Jerry, really enjoyed our content for a while. First live stream. Well, welcome, Jerry. If you have a question, Jerry, drop it in the comments below. I certainly am glad you were able to make it here with us. So if it's anybody's first time, give us a shout out. Really what the Knights is about is it's really not about me. It's not about the rest of the Knights and the players. It's really been about this community that we've kind of found on the internet. Our Patreon has really become sort of the heart of the channel, and our Discord channel particularly, and just some incredible gaming that's been going on there. A lot of conversations, a lot of insight, and a lot of good games being run as well. So, Andrew, of course, good evening to you, sir. Glad to see you. Glad to have you here. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna have as much trolling as we usually do. But again, let me real quick. I see Edward has a question, but before we get into that, Bob. I saw Matthew had a question as well. So Bob made a great point. So, for everybody here who may not know the inner details of us, the Knights, we started off playing Pathfinder because we just wanted to learn how to play the game. Some new players did, and I was going to show them how to do it. And we ended up putting it on YouTube, and that kind of took off, and we started making some other types of videos, kind of taking the conversations that I was having with the Knights, explaining to them the inner workings of how the game works, and especially for Bob, who wants to be a game master or dungeon master someday, and we just decided to put those up as well. And yeah, and so recently because of that, the nights we're not full-time streamers. There's 5 of us officially on the nights. We've got a couple of friends of the show who top in from time to time, and December. I don't have kids, so I don't really have an excuse. So my interaction with you all in December was a bunch of live streams, but everybody else has kids and families and and wives and stuff. So it was pretty hard trying to get everybody together. And so hopefully in the new year here, the holiday season is over. That'll make things a little bit easier in terms of timing. But in addition to that, of course, we're worried about COVID and the spikes in infection rates. So we're all doing the best we can to stay safe. So the plan is for us, we're actually doing a dress rehearsal tomorrow, private dress rehearsal. Although maybe we'll let some of our patrons in. Is to get the group set up on our Foundry server, the Knights of Last Call, the community, the Patreon. We have a fully maxed out Forge server, which hosts, I think we have 3 separate Foundry licenses, so we can support running 3 games simultaneously. And we're going to be using one of those to run our Rise of the Rune Lords campaign, at least for the foreseeable future, virtually. We're going to be bringing that live to YouTube Live, with, of course, recording, so you can watch it later if you didn't catch it live. And and we're really trying to figure out a way to involve the community, because that's really what we want to do. So, luckily we're not popular, like, at all. I mean, blessings to you all who are here, but so we will really have the option and the luxury to be able to interact with our chat while we're playing. If you've watched some of the other big shows and stuff like that, for the most part, they kind of ignore the chat. We're small, we have the luxury, and I see this as a community game first and foremost. So I'm interested to see, and certainly our group of players are not by any stretch of imagination pros or great actors, and they're not even that seasoned or veteran of gamers. So it'll be really interesting to see what a very what should we say, intensely fervent audience, perhaps people who are much more knowledgeable about the rules than some of my players are, what their insight is live while we're playing. I think it's going to be mostly hilarious. So yeah, let me go in. Yeah, so hopefully that is the nature of it. We and of course with weekly game, because recording takes a long time, editing takes a long time. So I feel like the live stream is also going to enable us just to get more content out there. And my hope is that we can get 1 game a week until we finish this Rise of the Rune Lords game out. So let's just kind of start here. And of course, I should be quick to plug ourselves. If you want to leave us a super chat, that's amazing. That's awesome. That's great. I'll certainly shout you out and try to get to your question straight away. In addition, there is a link in the description below with a link to our Stream Elements tips page. This is just another way that you can support the Knights. The Stream Element tip, it goes directly to us. It doesn't go through YouTube, so we get a bigger bite out of that tip than we would if you get it through YouTube. But either way, it's totally awesome. And I would be completely remiss to say that if you are enjoying these conversations and you want this 24/7, that you should hop onto our Patreon and get access to our Discord. We have a couple of different tiers. $3 will just get you in the door into our Discord. It's the cheapest price that Patreon will let you charge. But we do have some tiers above that if you want to show some extra support to the Knights, get access to some bonus content, as well as some more exclusive offerings for those higher tier people. So take a look. Matthew, he'd like to hear my thoughts on the bonus archetype rule. Well, we don't have an agenda tonight, right? There's no list to get through. So I'm going to go deep on some of these things. If I can't get to your question, I'm sorry. I mean, it's capitalism. If you want to go to the top of the list, just send a super chat. But first come, first serve until then. So Matthew says, my thoughts on the bonus archetype rule. I'm assuming you mean the free archetype rule. Well, we can start off by saying, I don't think I would play Pathfinder 2 without it. Pathfinder 2 is unique. Its distinction from other D20-based fantasy games is the array of options that you get to choose from. You get so many feats. You get class feats. You get ancestry feats. You get general feats. You get skill feats. And there's so much to choose from. And in a sense, having all of that choice can almost sometimes make you feel worse because there's so much that you're leaving behind. By choosing just one class, you know, there's I think 19 now classes in Pathfinder 2. So let's assume, you know, forget 1 to 20, right? Forget 1 to 20. Let's say that you're just sitting down to play a campaign for a year and you expect to maybe get to 10th level. You're going to pick one class. By the time that year is over, Paizo will probably have released, I don't know, another 3 or 4 classes. So now there'll be like 23 or 24 classes. And you are just going to experience such a small sliver of what this game has to offer that I think if you are going to embrace Pathfinder 2, it's because you want those crunchy mechanical choices, and the free archetype variant just lets you dive right into that. It gives you this incredible opportunity to sort of not gimp your character and still explore interesting ideas. Yes, there are power builds like, you know, being a sorcerer and using your high charisma and then taking a champion and, you know, getting a 14 strength and taking a champion dedication to also get straight to heavy armor. And there, you know, there's a bunch of cheesy builds that I've seen. But you can also do things with like more flavorful, you know, archetypes like the celebrity or the dandy, you know, or the acrobat, which may not have immediate combat potential or even just like immediate exploration dungeon potential. And now you could take those feat classes or those archetype feats and not feel like you're really screwing yourself out of what it is that you want to do. And the last thing is, it's just, it takes a game that's already super, super flexible and it just breaks it wide open. It takes it from, you know, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of builds to like millions of builds. And I think that's what makes it so appealing to me. My only complaint about it, if I were to restructure it, I will say that, and you know, and well, let me finish that thought. But I did see something in the chat from Aeon Rider about using free archetype carefully. It's a bigger jump in power than most care to admit to. I agree with this, actually. I think certain archetypes really increase the power level. Aeon Rider mentioned Beastmaster. We've seen Beastmaster play out in Knights of Last Call with Burl having Beastmaster with Lucky the Badger. Yeah, it is more powerful. I don't know. It's probably not like a full, probably not like a full level, but if you think about your standard Pathfinder 2 experience point or encounter building rules, where it says that 80 experience points is a moderate encounter and 120 is a severe encounter and 160 is an extreme encounter where you can very reasonably expect possible PC death or even TPK. I would say that a party with all free archetypes who've done a good job of choosing ones that are going to sort of add to their versatility and power and effectiveness, you might be able to like bump those up by like 10 XP. So like 90 XP would be a moderate, like 130, 135 might be a severe. So it's not like a whole huge jump in power level, but it's enough that, you know, it's something that you should potentially consider taking into account. Oh, so let me finish my thought. The one thing that I don't like about free archetype is a free archetype, in some cases, it's like a super background. Yeah, sure, my character is, you know, a fighter because that's like mechanically what I want to play in the game, but they were raised in a convent and to be a warrior of the divine, and so I have this free archetype of cleric. Or I was raised on the high seas and my character is a rogue or a swashbuckler or a fighter or a cleric, and they're a pirate. So my archetype is going to be pirate. Well, you don't get your free archetype feat until level 2. And that's really wonky because it means at level 1, you aren't your free archetype. And so it's like, my character's background is they were a pirate, but they weren't a pirate at all at level 1. And then suddenly at level 2, they become a pirate. I don't like this. If I could rejigger the math and the feat structure, which I might someday, I don't know, we'll see. The Patreon lets me get away with a lot of stuff. I would change it so that you get your free archetype at level 1, and then you get those archetype feats, those free archetype feats at 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, etc., etc. So what does that do? Also, it means instead of getting no class feats and then 2 class feats and then no class feats and then 2 class feats, you would get 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. You'd get a class feat on your even levels, and then on your odd levels, you would get a free archetype feat, which in some cases is basically equivalent to a class feat. And I think that would also smooth out the progression. And that means every time you gain a level, you'd be getting either a class feat or an archetype feat. And I think that would just be a lot more appealing and a lot more fun. Okay. So that's my thoughts on free archetype. I mean, I could probably go deeper, but I saw in the chat real quick, someone said, well, you could take the dedication at 1 and then not take the second or the new feat until 4th. That works too. And that's what we've done, I think, in every campaign that we used it. We've let you take the archetype dedication for free archetype at level 1, and then you basically get it a level early, and then you don't get that second feat until level 4. But I'd prefer probably to get it at 3 if I could. It screws with some of the math and how the way feat acquisition works, but you wouldn't have to change too much to make it work. Yeah, all right. So, Edward asks, how do you handle insight checks and sense motive? I hate using it like a lie detector and was wondering if you have a better way. Well, I guess my first question is, why do you hate using it like a lie detector? It's kind of why it's there, right? I think there's a fear in a lot of GMs and a lot of DMs about giving information away. And I don't play my cards very close to the chest at all. I want my players to know more information, not less. It's always very difficult, even when it seems obvious to you that the clue is right there and that obviously the Baron is the evildoer and they should have figured it out a long time ago. Even if you beat them over the head with it, it's just not as obvious to your players as it is to you, who have been reading and studying this stuff possibly for weeks, and it all makes sense in your head. But role-playing games' biggest hurdle is the exchange of information. Making another person understand these concepts, which not only is difficult to do in the real world, but you're talking about doing it in a fictional world. So all of the sort of the data and the sort of context clues that we rely on our normal day don't really apply to a fantasy world, because in the fantasy world, of course, their characters would have noticed that this character is a bit too short to be an elf. Maybe they're using illusion magic, but it's like that information is really, really hard to deliver as a DM. And that's where something like insight, sense motive, or perception, or any of those skills could become really useful, because it's a mechanism that allows you, without being just completely giving it to them and saying, you notice that this person is too short to be an elf. You think they might be using illusion magic. If you just give that to them, it doesn't feel like it was earned. But if a player makes an insight check, or they make some sort of perception check, and they roll success, and you say, and you don't have to play coy with it. You notice something odd. Don't beat around the bush. Just tell them, this person seems like they are, too short to be an elf. There's something wrong here. You can feel it. And if they want to ask follow-up questions, that's fine. You could even go so far as to say, you suspect the person's behavior doesn't fully fit with the way that a person normally acts. There might be some sort of illusion or polymorph trickery here at work, right? Like, don't feel like the need to play everything so close to the chest. Just let them know. You're not a mystery writer. This isn't a Hollywood plot. Even if it was a Hollywood plot, I don't know about you all, but when I go to a movie, most of the time, they telegraph that stuff. And if you're paying attention at all, you already know who did it before you get to the end, or you already can tell how something's going to wrap up. So, rather than relying on your players to be these sort of expert level detectives and then struggle, I'm not saying give it to them. But give them big clues. And even when you give them big clues, they will still feel like they are Sherlock Holmes when they put it all together. Just don't make it more difficult than it needs to be. All right. We got a lot of questions. All right, I'm going to try, everybody. I'm sorry. There's a good chat going on here. GM Scott says he's only going to be half paying attention to the live stream. Well, hi, GM Scott. Hopefully you're half paying attention to this. So Inkyard asks, when am I going to play a Sandbox? That's a great question. It is definitely my style of play. Pathfinder 2 is pretty complicated. The game system has a lot of moving parts. I think it's harder to play a Sandbox style game in Pathfinder 2, a true sandbox style game where the players can literally kind of do anything and go anywhere. And the game system itself doesn't include for you a lot of the key elements that one would need, in my opinion, to run a sandbox. And one of the things that you need to run a sandbox, I think, are random charts and tables to help you sort of give yourself inspiration about where you should go and what you should do. That being said, I think you could do like a more focused sandbox, like a classic dungeon where you design it, you prep it, all the monsters are inside of it, the encounters that you know are going to be there. You still need to create some sort of way to sort of create interesting random events so that it doesn't feel totally procedural, like we're just going through the rooms one by one and clearing stuff out. For me, the element of a sandbox isn't just about player having the freedom to go wherever they want. It's also about the narrative, the collaborative story that we're building, having the freedom to go wherever it might go and to be sort of a surprise to everyone. If I map everything out and prep everything out, well, not necessarily as big as of a surprise to me about what might happen in that session. If you look at older editions of the game, and I mean older editions of the game, like first edition had, when you made a random encounter, well, for starters, you could be going around and then you roll randomly to encounter something. Maybe you encounter some friendly merchants. Maybe you encounter some not so friendly bandits. Maybe you encounter a pack of bloodthirsty wolves. But additionally, you would sometimes roll a reaction chart, which would say, I'm going to roll dice and I'm going to determine randomly whether these people or these monsters or these foes are friendly, unfriendly, hostile. And all the random elements are doing is telling you what is going on. They don't tell you why it's going on. And that for me is a lot of the fun as a GM, is having to think on the spot in the moment, why, okay, I just rolled a random encounter with a pack of orcs and it says that they aren't going to attack because it says they're neutral, they're indifferent. Why is this, right? Orcs, who traditionally are raiders and attacking, armed adventuring parties entering their territory. Why are they neutral? Well, maybe they're fleeing from a bigger threat. Maybe they give the party advice in exchange for, letting bygones be bygones. And you end up having this interesting encounter that no one could have predicted, not even me as the DM. I understand that for a lot of players, when you're starting off, GMing is a very, very, very challenging thing to do, even if you're literally drawing straight inside of the lines. But I also would encourage you to figure out ways to start, kind of sketching your own work, because it's a great way to get better. And for me as a GM, I have the most fun when I am completely thinking on my feet, when I'm almost in as much hot water as the party members are. They are trying to figure out solutions to problems, and I am trying to understand what is the context of these problems. How are the party's actions going to influence things further along down the line? And I love feeling that mad scramble of being a GM. I think that's what makes it the most fun. Let's see. Anthony says the best thing about the Knights of Last Call Discord is the Knights are actually active and talk to people there. Yeah, I spend a lot of time. It depends, right? I have a 9 to 5, like everybody else. There's no full-time YouTube. So I do try to spend as much time on the Discord as I can, answering everybody's questions. Certainly if you tag me on the Patreon Discord, I will get to your response. And it's one of the luxuries we have. We're a small community. I can't imagine a world in which we're ever super huge, honestly. It's just not the way that we present ourselves. So I think that I'm very happy to hear people like Anthony say this, because, again, I said it before, but we started this channel as a way to educate and entertain, and maybe do both at the same time. And that's even in the approach that we do our actual play, right? Which is, done in a way that it's not just us playing the game. I want to stop in the middle of the game and I want to explain to the people at home who are watching, who may not be as familiar with Pathfinder 2, about what a rule is or why we're doing something and how a mechanic works, because I want people to learn. And it's the same thing with like our Night School series. I want you all to learn how to become better game masters, better players. And so, part of that is conversations and discussions just like we're having here tonight. All right. Kieran says, use our videos to convince their player from switch from 5e to PF2e. Yeah, you know, I mean, 5th edition is not my favorite edition of D&D, but so, you know, certainly I wouldn't tell anybody that they should switch. There are advantages to Pathfinder 2 over 5th edition. There are disadvantages to Pathfinder 2 over 5th edition. It is a more complex game. There are more rules to learn. Sometimes those rules can be a bit stuffy, you know, but 5th edition can also get a little samey. So, you know, it's a give and a take. I really like games that know what they want to be and focus on being that and get good at being that. 5th edition and Pathfinder 2 both try to fill a more generic niche, which makes sense as they're sort of the big dogs in the room. But Pathfinder 2 is definitely scratching a more mechanical character building focused niche. In 5th edition, there's just not that many knobs and levers for you to twist and turn to really express yourself mechanically inside of the game. So, yeah, so this is actually kind of funny. I feel bad because the rules lawyer actually started off this chat with a statement where he said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were going live tonight." And he was almost trying to reschedule. The rules lawyer mentioned I think he's doing a live stream right now, that their Discord is going to be basically doing a West Marches style community game. We on our Discord have been planning this for about like the past 2 weeks. We already have community games. I said we have this Foundry server set up with a bunch of licenses. So we already have a bunch of our GMs inside of our community running games for our community. So we thought, well, why don't we just take a step back and sort of create a mega campaign? Oh no. Ben says the super chat isn't working. I see that. Well, that's weird. That certainly concerns me. Well, I don't know. Let me check something really quick. Let me go to my alerts. This is just a dummy alert. This isn't anybody. That's a fake super chat, but it does seem the graphic seems to be working. So I wonder if it's a problem with the actual game. All right. Well, sorry. Well, I don't know if super chat is working for everybody. It doesn't seem so. But if you don't need to, there's a tip. If you are looking to tip us, there is a tip thing in the description below. Let's take a look here. Mention massive. You know, I got to be honest with you, Kieran. The one thing that I have been really impressed with in our community is the quality of the people inside of it. I don't know if it's the kind of the way that we give off our vibes, in our live streams or in our videos, but the folks who do join our community are all very, very even-keeled, even-tempered. We haven't had any real problems with anybody. And so for a community, hey, GM Scott said testing, and I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. Test complete. I'll take your $2 test. Thanks. And so, it's been really fun. I was worried about it. I'll be honest with you, right? Like, it's the internet, right? We've all been there. So I was kind of worried when we started this community thing that, like, it was going to be like a headache and a hassle. And I've never really been big into like the social media, or not social media, but the online community thing. Even when I used to play EverQuest and World of Warcraft, I never got into guilds ever. I just would play with my friends or play with pickup groups and just do the basic content. Like, I wouldn't be super end game rating or anything like that. So, Yeah. Pierre says it's in the sweet spot. I agree. I'm going to crack this soda. Yeah. I mean, obviously, the Patreon is the way that we are growing our channel. YouTube's not going to do it because...
NA tipped $10. NA tipped $10. Users like gelatinous oozes in a dungeon without it being a gotcha.
All right. Thoughts on running oozes like gelatinous cube in a dungeon without it being a gotcha? Ooh, well, that's a great question. It's a great question. So you have to. Okay, I love gelatinous cubes, right? I love aberrations. I love oozes. Yeah, the echo was there because I had my stream elements page open. Remember, I was testing it, and so it, whatever, it was going both. But I closed it, so we took care of it. But okay, so gelatinous cubes. Yeah, the echo was weird. Sorry about it. I closed the file. We're moving on. You have to, if you want it to be fun, you just telegraph it. And the way I always telegraph it inside of a dungeon is, and if you do it right, it'll be like the reveal in like a really great movie where they never saw it coming. But then when it does happen, it doesn't feel like a gotcha because in that moment, they suddenly realize all of the context clues that should have given them every heads up possible, right? And with a gelatinous cube, my go-to way is I always like to describe how clean the dungeon suddenly looks. And I'll be very, very subtle about it, because in my mind, the gelatinous cube exists in a dungeon as a living street cleaner, right? It goes up and down these hallways, traditionally 10-foot wide hallways, just like, in the original D&D. And it kind of just sucks up all the detritus and all the debris. And so in my way of telegraphing it is to say, like, there's an area where it seems really, really, really clean and maybe like the walls seem clean or something like that, right? So very, very, very subtle, only if they're really investigating it. And then if you really want to sort of give them a chance, you can describe something like you notice some flickering light and maybe they notice like a helmet because gelatinous cubes are supposed to be clear, transparent. They might notice like some bones or a helmet that seem to be floating up in this, in the midair. And they're kind of like, wait, what's going on? Like, why is that? And only if they make the perception check do they actually see the cube. But if they kind of investigate and get closer, that's when the gelatinous cube rushes forward and they go, oh, it was a gelatinous cube. It was transparent in the dim light of the dungeon. We couldn't see it. If you don't telegraph at all, the players are walking down the hallway, you ask for perception checks, everybody fails, and you say, oh, you walked to gelatinous cube, you're engulfed. Roll initiative. That is mechanically a fine way to play it, but I feel like you're leaving something on the table if you do it that way, right? I think the telegraph is a lot more fun. So that's how I would handle a gelatinous cube. I love them. They're some of my favorite. I also like using them in interesting and creative ways, like putting them at the bottom of pits or, making it into a place where it's like, it makes sense that it's there. And it provides like an extra level or challenge. So, welcome, Smith. Welcome. Glad to have you with us. Don't get any more popular. It'll ruin everything. Yeah. No, I mean, we have not quite 100 members of our Discord yet, our Patreon, but, we're trying to get there. Hello from Germany. But I don't know what we'll end up being at, but I still think we could probably grow another 100 or so, or maybe 200, 250, I think would be pretty sweet for us. We'd pay all of the channel's bills. We'd have some beer money, a couple extra bucks that we could throw into, upgrading our equipment beyond what we're already at. Because me, I'm a perfectionist. I want the best of the best. And that would be sweet. And it'd also give me a good reason to try to organize NightCon 2023. Everyone's sitting here lamenting us being successful. That's great to see. Thank you so much, Pierre. No, I know you guys are just kidding. I mean, look, I like it too. And again, I will try everything I can to try to, no matter how much this channel may or may not grow, to try to keep it rooted in this sort of community aspect that we do. 5e, level 10 campaign, the only decision you make is a subclass, a few ASIs, feats, and spells if you're a caster. Yeah. That 5th edition is, obviously it's the most successful edition, arguably the most successful role-playing game that has ever existed. But, I'm running a 5th edition campaign right now. We're running it once a month. And sort of been my goal is to, level up the party. We've had just a few sessions. And so the party has gained a level every session because I wanted to get through levels 1 and 2 really quick. And the experience point table really helps you do that. But, boy, they got to level 3. They made their, the Warlock made their Pact choice. The Barbarian made their path, their Berserker path or whatever. And, they're kind of done. So if that's what really drives you, then you need to maybe think about a different game. If you don't care about the mechanical choices or the mechanical choices frighten you, I mean, then stick with 5th edition. There's a lot of game engine there. The game engine is more or less the same. You're just not, weighted down by all of these mechanical decisions. And in Pathfinder 2, there's a lot of mechanical decisions to make. And quite frankly, the way the math of the game is structured, you kind of need to count those bonuses up in order to really perform at the level that you're expected to. So, something to consider. All right. Sorry, I'm getting now through the chat where everybody was talking while I was talking about free archetype. But yeah, it seems like everybody thinks free archetype is pretty much the bomb. Yeah, so let's see here. Anthony, if you're talking about Pathfinder 2, the only thing I feel weird about Sense Motive is they got rid of the insight skill. Sense Motive is now a part of the perception skill. It's in the core rulebook. I'm not sure where, because remember, perception isn't really a skill, but if you look in the back of the book or the index, or I'm not 100% sure where it is, certainly if you look up Archives of Nethys, Sense Motive is an action that falls under perception, which means that everybody has it, because everybody is at least trained in perception and eventually gets to expert in perception. So it is still in Pathfinder 2, it's just now under perception. So they basically took sort of visual perception and sort of emotional perception, and they just made it perception. And Sense Motive is a component of that under perception. So that is where that is. In a world where you gate guards regularly use Divine Lance and Fireball, why would you need to detect lies? This is a good question. Again, people are like, I question the morality of Divine Lance as a thing. To me, it's like a polygraph test or the TSA. It's just how they would run things. I, of course, hate secret checks. You can prompt them when you want to tell them something. Yeah, I don't know. That's a whole separate thing. But yes, you can. Hello from France. Well, bonsoir. Bonsoir. I think that's good night or good evening. Bonsoir. I took two semesters of French in college. Nice to listen to your thoughts about Pathfinder 2nd Edition. What do you think about uncommon or rare ancestries and the general feat adopted ancestry being limited to common ones? Well, I think uncommon and rare ancestries are far too common to be uncommon and rare, right? I think as a GM, mechanically, I don't think that they are that much more powerful. Some of the rare ones have a little bit of added bonus to them, but I think the main thing is if you're setting a world tone in your game, right? If you play a default game of Pathfinder 2, you are going to be playing with humans and elves and dwarves and halflings, and your game is going to basically be this, right? It's going to look and it's going to feel a lot like this. But if you go beyond that and you start including these uncommon races, certainly the rare ones, you are going to be saying, and I think to ignore that that's the biggest mistake. If you just let everybody choose uncommon and rare, and we don't even talk about them, like they just are suddenly there in the game, that I think is a missed opportunity. Like if someone chooses a, hobgoblin or something like that as a player race, there's two ways to look at it. One is that they are a needle in the haystack, a diamond in the rough, the one rare hobgoblin ancestor. I think adventure. I think that's the most boring way to do it. The other way to do it is to say, this player is saying, I like hobgoblins. Maybe I just like the mechanics of them. I guess that's a possibility. But regardless, I think it's a way for you to say, maybe in my world, hobgoblins fill a different role, or they fill a different niche. Maybe we are saying that in this world, hobgoblins are very, very different, and they should be more important, or they should play a more important role. Maybe if someone is a hobgoblin ancestry in your world, maybe the hobgoblins were once a mighty empire who attempted world domination, but were beaten by an alliance of the free races of Middle Earth, and now the Hobgoblin Nation is sort of broken apart, and you have all these sort of ex-soldiers, ex-army people sort of wandering around because what they were a part of is no longer in existence, and suddenly they're kind of like this. They're kind of veterans of a forgotten war, and hobgoblins sort of fulfill this interesting role within your world. Well, now you've taken this uncommon ancestry and made it a lot more interesting, and you made it feel different. I think the biggest mistake you could make is to take a world that is kind of written with this baseline assumption, and then suddenly everybody in your party is a plant person or a robot, because that just doesn't, those two things just don't connect. Right? Then you have verisimilitude problems. Then you have issues sort of aligning expectations. And that's what I don't like about that. And to that end, about the adopted ancestry being limited to common ones, again, it makes sense to me that if hobgoblins fill an important niche, societal niche, ecological niche in your world, then being adopted by them, is fine. But if the core, if the core of your world, if you look at Absalom, a book that we just reviewed this weekend, and we're going to release a video on it, hopefully Thursday. If you look at Absalom, I think the percentage breakdown is like 41% human, like 9% elves, and then it like goes down from there or something like that in terms of the racial makeup of Absalom. And this is one of the most diverse cities in the world. So it stands to, this is a way of saying, look, humans are the de facto race of Golarion, if you're going to have adopted ancestry, it probably should be one of these more common races, because that's just what's going to make the most sense. They're going to be the ones that are in that situation. So, but again, if you have a good story reason for it, and I don't think that, it's not just about the mechanics. For me, what a role-playing game is, what defines a role-playing game, what makes it different from a storytelling game versus a board game, is a board game, I'm just making choices to, even if the game has a very strong theme, ultimately, I am just making choices that are going to make me stronger and put me in a better position to win. And in a storytelling game, I don't really care at all about winning. I don't care about the mechanics. I just want to tell the most interesting story possible. A role-playing game for me is a game in which you are basically playing a board game, but instead of just worrying about winning or doing well, you are also making sure that your mechanical choices inform and shape and are informed by and shaped by the fictional or narrative elements of this sort of collaborative shared world. So, I think you should be careful. I think it's an opportunity for you to do some real world building and some real storytelling, and that's how I would approach that. Let's see. Yes, our Discord is private. You have to be a part of the page. So it's the Patreon's Discord. So, but we have a Squire level. It's $3 a month. It's the cheapest that Patreon allows us. And that will get you into all of our Discord channels. So, let's take a look here. Do I think that the overcomplicated rule set of Pathfinder 2 hinders a GM's ability to homebrew? That's a good question, Colonel Kronk. I will say that, let's start this. There are two main issues that a GM faces whenever they homebrew. And the first is, what tools do I have to express myself mechanically within the space of this game? So if you're playing a game where the only mechanic was you roll a six-sided die, I roll a six-sided die, and whoever rolls higher, they're the ones who succeeds. Well, that game doesn't give me a lot of space to work with. Well, Pathfinder 2, really, it does a lot. It has a lot of space to do that. But, Edward P. with a super chat. What is my favorite TTRPG and why? I will get to that in 1 second, Edward. I will certainly make sure I answer your question. Let me finish up kernels here. So Pathfinder 2 has a lot of mechanical depth, so it gives you a lot of fun tools to play with. The other thing that you have to worry about whenever you create a homebrew is this balanced? Now, that also depends on how much the game even cares about balance. In my personal opinion, 5th edition has a wide array of latitude about balance because it uses this, very flat math, and there's not a lot of core assumptions baked into the game. It's not a very tightly defined game. You can be wrong a little bit. The math, not very tight. So you could be wrong and it won't break your game. In Pathfinder 2, if I were to homebrew something that gave someone, let's just say something ridiculous, like +2 to hit, that would probably hinder or hurt my game if I'm actually concerned about keeping the game, as Paizo delivered it and as the game's challenges expect you to deliver it. So now they give you tools, especially when you're creating monsters, guidelines in the game mastery guide about what a creature's defenses should be, what their attack bonus should be in order to sort of fall into the lines of expectations. But when it comes to like creating feats or items, there aren't as many guidelines, and there's a lot of knobs and levers for you to twist and pull in a game like Pathfinder 2. But you do have to be careful, because if you crank that lever up a little too much or twist that dial a little bit too much, you might just create something, really, really powerful. So I would say creatures, pretty easy. Everything else could be potentially kind of challenging. So, and maybe that's why we've seen a Battle Zoo bestiary, but not a Battle Zoo feats section. All right, Edward, what is my favorite TTRPG and why? Well, that's a great question. I would say, people think I'm joking. Hold on a sec. All right. So this is the 2nd edition of, there we go. It is the 2nd edition of Monster Hearts. So Monster Hearts is a messy game, a game about the messy lives of teenage monsters. So think Twilight, the RPG, and you're not too far off from this. It is a game. It is a powered by the apocalypse game, which, if you don't know what that means, it's you basically roll 2 6-sided dice and you add your stat, which might be like a +1 or a +2 or a -1. And so you roll 2d6 plus a number or minus a number. If you get a 10 or higher, you get everything that you were hoping for. If you get a 6 or lower, well, then it's like the ball is in the GM's court, and they can kind of decide what happens. They might decide you failed, but a lot of times they might decide you failed and something that you didn't want to have happen happened instead, right? It's sort of like the player is in control, and it's like neither the player nor the GM is in control in a powered by the apocalypse game. And then when we get to a critical moment, the player is going to roll the dice. And if the player rolls a 10 or higher on their dice, it's like almost like they get the ball, and they kind of get to say, nope, this is what's happening, and everything that I want to have happen happens. If you get a 6 or less, it's like the ball goes to the GM. Now, that doesn't mean they have to be a dick and they have to say like, oh, your character gets kicked in the face and they're dead. They just have the ball. And the GM might have a different agenda than the player does, right? Their job is to make the player's lives interesting and complicated. And they're going to use the fact that you rolled a 6 or less to introduce additional complications to your game. And then if you roll a 7, 8, or 9 right in the middle, it's like a mixture of both. You get a little bit of what you wanted, but it comes with a cost, or it comes with a complication. The reason I really like this game so much is because it really sells what it is trying to do. This game is trying to make a high school, teenage, monster, drama, romance game. And it just works. It just delivers. Even if you don't like Twilight, I don't like Twilight. Even if you don't like tween, YA, supernatural romance, which I don't like, this game does such an immaculate job at delivering that experience. The mechanics inform your choices. Your role playing is guided by the mechanics of the game. And it is, for me, the perfect synthesis of what it means to be a role playing game. So many times when I see people play role playing games, and this includes me, you are 1 or a 0. You are either role playing or you are playing a game. And it's like you flicker between the two, sometimes very quickly. Sometimes you're like, oh, we're in role-playing mode. And then you're like, oh, we rolled initiative. We're in combat mode. We're in game mode. And it's like the two things don't work. But to me, a role-playing game is like a perfect synthesis, right? It's a marriage. And so, Monster Hearts takes these two concepts of role-playing and game and sort of merges them and makes them one and the same. Because what you do in the game is decided by the narrative elements within the game, and those narrative elements within the game also have an impact on the way that you mechanically interface with the game. So again, I think it's a terrific game. It is by a fantastic lady by the name of Avery Alder, and yeah, it's pretty great. I really like it. I have the first edition here somewhere too, signed, but yeah, it's pretty good. It's a great example of how, done correctly, game mechanics can create role-playing. I play role-playing games because I want to role-play, but it's really awesome when the game not only encourages it and rewards it, it sort of requires it, right? You could theoretically play Pathfinder 2 completely fine and never role-play even once, right? Like there's nothing in the feat that says you have to role play. There's nothing in the chapter that says you have to role play. So, yeah. That's my favorite game, probably of all time. Now, if we want to go something more mainstream, probably 3rd edition D&D, which is like the complete polar opposite of this game. 3rd edition D&D is like when I want something different, when I want the opposite. 3rd edition D&D is like the perfect marriage for me of a simulation game that doesn't really care about your story. There's nothing in it that is trying to fulfill an agenda. It is just a rules, physics, simulation engine, and it does that really, really well. And it has enough complexity and mechanical depth that makes it a little bit more interesting to me than something like 1st edition or 2nd edition, but it doesn't get as gamey or, crunchy as like 4th edition D&D or 2nd edition Pathfinder. All right. Well, there we go. Thank you for the super chat, by the way. All right. Oh my gosh, guys. You have so many questions. I'm sorry. I'm just going off on a detailed rant. I'm sorry. I'm really trying to get to this. Boy. Okay, here we go. Jada Joss says, dang, hopes to get some money so he can support us and see that West Marches thing unfold. Well, the good news is we are going to be creating a system whereby the players who are playing the game can use the fruits of their adventurous labor to sort of raise up the level of the town, which will mean that when players join later, they'll be higher level. And that is a great way for people who may be joining the Discord late. If everybody else is level 5 and you join at level 1, who are you going to go adventure with, right? But if you can join and only be like level 4 or 5, and then you can kind of hop into adventures with everybody else. So, pretty good about that. Anyone have any general tips for creating captivating stories into sessions? I haven't GM much, and I'm in the military now and have a family, but haven't played in 2 years, but might GM out of necessity. Well, my tip is don't create a captivating story. Create a interesting situation. Just create an interesting situation. Create a problem. Don't create a solution. Create a problem. You can spend some time thinking about how that problem might continue to evolve, but do not assume that the players are going to do anything. Just create a problem and then let them approach it. Create a situation, not a plot. Create a scenario, not a story. Yeah, beer. The beer's gotten pretty expensive. I do like a craft IPA, so come on. We need some cash for the nights here. Gwildor of Knights of Last Call fame says he plays games just to get to the end game rating. Couldn't care less. Could care less. Don't even care. Frank, we're a little behind here, but did we hear anything about 6th edition D&D? Not really. If I had to take my guess, not much is going to change. So I actually might do a whole video on this, or maybe a whole live stream on this, or maybe if we get caught up, I'll go down the rabbit hole. Professor Dungeon Master of Dungeon Craft, great channel, did a great video today about the announcement about Wizards of the Coast. The head of Wizards of the Coast is taking over for Hasbro as their CEO. And what does that mean for the future of Dungeons & Dragons? I don't think it means technically anything, but I still thought that his video really covered what I see as the likely future state of Dungeons & Dragons. And I don't like it. I mean, I like his video, and I agree with a lot of his conclusions. My take on it, though, is a little bit more cynical, and I don't really like it. Let's see. The rules lawyer told you to leave their stream for this one. Well, all right. We appreciate the rules lawyer. Yeah, again, we saw the rules lawyer post that, and we're like, oh, my God. How great minds think alike, right? I wanted to reach out to him and send him a message to say, like, that's crazy. And I saw the liner notes for his stream, and obviously I think he's doing it. They're all doing it a little bit differently than the way that we have been planning on doing it, but I think it's incredible. Philip says, community is amazing and community games are great. Allow me to play my first game of Pathfinder 2 and grapple a dragon. That's pretty sweet. That is pretty sweet. This just in, the Knights of Last Call bully the rules lawyer stream into ending to absorb their traffic. Sarcastic. No, it's a contest now. Listen, if they have a West Marches and we have a West Marches, you know what that means? Planar crossover event of the decade, right? A massive rift occurs and heroes from 2 worlds need to combine in order to confront the power. That's what I would do. The rules lawyer is even here. All right, hey, well, what's going on, buddy? I would say good idea because we're trying to do the same thing. Loth asks, have you any tips to share on pacing the games at GM? When to slow down for role playing and when and how to press on? Yes. For starters, remember, I think the whole game is role playing. I think you're role playing all the time, even if you're not. Speaking in a funny voice and having an in-depth conversation with a shopkeeper. If you are speaking as you normally would and say, hey, my dwarf champion is going to stride to the front line and raise a shield and take the charge. That's role-playing because that's not who you are, right? You're not a dwarf champion who takes the charge. That's your character, and you're just doing what your character would do. That's role-playing. But if you mean slow down for role play as in like chitty chat, talky time, not attacking time, my general sense of it is I came to play the game and I want dice to roll. So there's 2 really good, easy solutions. One is quickly decide what is the point of this conversation.
$10 was late. Did I miss anything? Also check your Discord.
Was I late? Did I miss anything? Nope. We're just doing some Q&As today. We are, just hanging out, having fun, and not much. He also says, check my Discord. My Discord is closed currently so that I have maximum resources to be able to run this stream. So, but thank you. All right, so let me answer Loth's question really quick. So decide, what is the point of this conversation? The point of this conversation is the party needs to get an invite to the Imperial wedding. Okay, well, let's make sure we're in that direction, right? Even in a movie, which is a lot of dialogue, they're still editing and they're still pacing. The conversation should serve a purpose. And especially if you are, wanting to structure your game more like a movie, then you need to be a good editor as well. A tightly written screenplay is going to be better than one that meanders all over the place. So push your party, push the conversation towards that route. Give everybody a chance to sort of have a beat, to have a moment, to have something that makes their characters stand out, that really shows off their personality, their interests, their motivation. Once everybody's done that, there's no problem in just saying, and scene. Once everybody has sort of said what they have to say, just close it, move on, and say, the Imperial, someone says something and they say something, the Imperial Magistrate nods a few more times, you exchange a few more words of pleasantry, and within moments, you have in your hand a stamped and sealed invitation to the wedding. And that's it. And then you move on, right? So just get what you need out of the scene and then move on. It's like combat. Once the last enemy is dead, the combat is over, right? And each round, the party is trying to make the enemy less alive, right? They're trying to beat the enemy. So there's a clear goal. Everyone's working towards it. And once the goal is achieved, we end the scene. Well, same thing's true for a role-playing scene. Domble says, okay, we're going back to Gelatinous Cube. A million clues that the cube was there, but I didn't realize it and still charged anyways. So much more fun. Yes, I agree. Yes, we would love to do a night con. I don't know how we would do it or where we would do it. One of our patrons owns like 100 acres and literally built themselves a separate gaming compound on their property. Depending on how big it is, maybe we go to his place. Let's take a look. Nightcon would need a liquor license. I mean, to fit the our theme, I think we certainly would. Nightcon 2023, first 2 weeks of November would be specific for those goals. Y'all got this. Yeah, that'd be sweet. That would be a pretty cool. That'd be our 2-year anniversary. No, that'd be our 3-year anniversary. All right, here we are. The man himself. Rules Lawyer says, I hear you're talking about a West Marches. We're launching a quasi West Marches. Great minds think alike and stream at the same time. Listen, we're on the same wavelength, buddy. We're trying to. Somebody's got to bring No Nat down. I'm just saying. Maybe it takes 2 of us. I don't know. And we're jamming at the exact same point of Rise of the Rune Lords. Yeah, it's great. I had asked a question to my Patreon. It's just sort of a rhetorical question, which was, what is something that you could do with a virtual VTT that you could never do in an in-person game? And we started talking about rules mechanics and, different things like lighting effects, which are fine. But I think taking the concept of what Gary Gygax originally envisioned Dungeons & Dragons to be like. So, quick history lesson. When the D&D game was created, it was the original D&D game, 1974. It quickly spread throughout the region, and each DM sort of created their own dungeon. It wasn't so much they created. In fact, when a DM would say that their world, they didn't really say world. They had their campaign, they had their dungeon, and it was very unusual for a DM to sort of have players that only played in their world. So, Gary's players would come and play in his dungeon on Friday night, take their characters, and then go and play in another person's dungeon on Saturday night. So the idea was that these characters were all sort of part of this kind of shared, cohesive world, which made sense because at that time, pretty much everybody who played the game probably knew Gary Gygax. And so as the game continued to expand, it was kind of the original MMORPG, right? Except without the O. It was a massively multiplayer tabletop role-playing game because you had a bunch of players playing with a bunch of DMs, but instead of a computer or a server running, Black Fathom Deeps or Nomergon or, Dire Maul, you had a GM running their dungeon. And that's why when Gary Gygax created first edition D&D, D&D, he did it because and that's why it has a reputation for being very strict and very, rules lawyery and very, because he wanted to create almost like what we have today with Pathfinder Society, very strict rules, because he didn't want you to be able to take your character and go over to Bob's house and play in a very different type of game where you get way different treasure and way different, rules, and then come play in somebody else's game and you show up and everyone's like, what the hell is with that? That character doesn't even make sense. And they're like, oh, I was playing in Bob's game. And Bob does this and Bob does that differently. And then it made it so that the characters were not, fungible between campaigns. Well, as games have expanded and each GM has sort of now created their own sort of world, the only way that you can do that sort of shared gaming experience is through Pathfinder Society or through, what used to be the RPGA for D&D, the D&D Adventures League now. But that has the dilemma of, sometimes it's limited to conventions, or if you play locally, you end up playing with the same group a lot. So it's basically just playing D&D like regular. So I think the online medium is really, really useful and really, really cool. And when you have a Discord of like-minded individuals who all want to get together and play, especially when you have a lot of GMs, like apparently we both do, I think it just makes sense. I think it's kind of like the next logical evolution and step. Let's see. Is anybody else addicted to character creation in PF2E? Well, I've made 2 characters in the last 3 weeks because my characters keep dying when I am playing Pathfinder 2. So now I have to make a 3rd character. Making characters is not as fun for me as I think it is for other people. But I certainly get the appeal in Pathfinder 2 far more than I ever would. I'll kick around with Path Builder sometimes and throw together a level 5 or a level 7 character just to kind of see what they would look like, what their feat selections might be like. I would never do that in 5th edition. But again, it's not a knock against 5th edition. There's just not as many choices to make. Let's see. Do you recommend any of the other GM subsystems from the GMG? I know you use stamina in the actual play, but curious if you'd recommend any of the others. I don't even necessarily know all the other ones. Let's see. Let's see. Variant rules. Archives of Nethys. Let's take a look. The only one as I look through here, there's only 2 that I think would be interesting to explore. Alignment variants doesn't really interest me. Skill points don't really interest me. Level 0 characters don't interest me. The 2 that interest me are probably the magical item variants. Basically kind of changing the paradigm of how you are awarded magical items, or even breaking it down so that you don't need them. And the proficiency without level. If you want your Pathfinder 2 game to feel more like a 5th edition game, I think those 2, if you're trying to strike the right tone of game, I think those could be very, very useful. So I definitely like those. As far as those go, and then Galarian of Death mentioned using victory points all the time. I don't really use the victory points because I use clocks from Blades in the Dark, sort of extended to Pathfinder 2. And that's basically the same thing as using victory points. So by definition, I guess I do use victory points all the time. But if you wanted to go for a very low power, type game, I think proficiency without level is a way to do it. It makes the proficiency difference feel better, and I think it makes the characters feel a little bit more grounded. Ben with the super chats. Thank you, Ben. You've been able to game with various luminaries of the D&D world. I have, yes. If you could game with anyone, living or dead, who would you choose? Yeah, so I've had an opportunity to, I've been going to Gen Con since I was about 18 years old. I had an opportunity to go to the very last Gen Con in Milwaukee, and I've pretty much been to every Gen Con in Indy since it's been there. Been to Origins every year, some Winter Fantasies here and there. So I've had a lot of stuff. I got to be honest with you. I had an opportunity during the early 5th edition playtest, when it was still definitely called D&D Next. I went out to Winter Fantasy, and I had the opportunity. You got assigned to a playtest group in the morning. You had a morning session and an evening session. We were there for 4 days. Maybe it was 3 days. It's in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in like January or February. So it's horrible Midwest winter town. And I remember too, because I was like super paleo then, and I didn't eat bread. And I remember I would always get the Unwich from Jimmy John's. There was like a Jimmy John's in the convention center. Anyways, well, on one of the days I had the opportunity to, in the morning was to play with my GM, or my DM was Monty Cook. And I really respected Monty Cook. He designed, third edition, and he wrote third edition DMG, which I loved. I thought it was an incredible book. He started his own, Malhavik Press, and I loved Malhavik Press's products. I loved the Arcana Unearthed and Arcana Evolved lines, the Tolos adventure series. So I thought he was just the bee's knees, and he was an awesome DM. Boy, I had a lot of fun. It was just a really, really fun experience. He was very responsive, very interesting, kept the game running well. And it felt like a D&D game, which means I didn't feel like I was playing a board game, but it also meant I didn't feel like I was sitting at like a really bad poetry slam meeting either, right? It felt adventurous, and it felt driven, and it felt, like a mix of going to a movie while playing at the craps table all at the same time, which is what I try to do whenever I play D&D, right? Like, I want people to feel like they are, doing these things simultaneously. So Neo says, Monty Cook is an amazing GM. Also had the opportunity to play under him. 10 out of 10. Great answer. Great. That's awesome. Yeah. I really, really respect him. I also had the opportunity to play with his now ex-wife, Sue Wine Cook. And she was a big driver of the Dragonlance fifth age dramatic storytelling game system, which I was also a huge fan of. So I really loved that whole, what ended up being like that whole kind of Monty Cook Games, Malhavik Press group. Monty Cook, Sean K. Reynolds, Bruce Cordell. Those are like 3 of my favorite game designers. So when they were all friends, which made sense. So when they all moved out to Seattle to work for Wizards of the Coast, and then they all ended up doing their own thing, it just worked out really, really well for me. And I really like Numenera. I haven't played the game yet, but I've kickstarted it, have the book, and I really like that system. So, which is also now I think generically called the Cipher system. And I think all 3 of those people were involved with that creation: Monty Cook, Sean K. Reynolds, and Bruce Cordell. So that is definitely my favorite. Obviously Gary Gygax would be awesome. I did not get a chance to play with him, but it is what it is. Unfortunately. All right. Goodness gracious. Trying to look here. Sorry if I missed your question. I'm just trying to catch up. The best uncommon ancestry is Leshy. Am I right? Moving on. Let's see. Fierce Flame says they are playing a hobgoblin, but are trying to work it into their backstory, interesting way. Awesome. Kudos. That's what makes it a role-playing game, is doing the mental gymnastics and parkour of trying to make something work, right? So that's what's really fun about it. Let's see, scrolling through here. See, this is why eventually I'm going to get some sort of queue system where you can put your questions so I don't have to scroll through this. So growing pains. Sorry, everybody. I'm not a pro elite gamer, Twitcher. People talking about Harrison Ford. Let's see. Question. What aspects of a setting do I need to codify in order to convert it to Pathfinder 2nd Edition? Table wants to say Eberron, but it dawned on me that deities need devotee benefits. Anything else to consider? Marks, right? But like, you could do marks as like heritages, which would be really cool. Like the way that Pathfinder 2 has these versatile heritages that can technically apply to any ancestry. So like Dampier is one of them, like you're part vampire. But you could have like, you know, a House Caneth heritage. You could have like a House Lysander heritage. And I think that would be a really, really cool way to do that. I don't know if your people have dragon marks, but I think dragon marks are pretty sweet. Certainly the deities convert over well. Let's see, what else? I mean, action points, hero points are kind of like the same thing, although action points was a 3rd edition thing, so I guess it doesn't actually apply anymore. I mean, the general technology level, but there's enough stuff with enough kind of late Ren Fair era stuff in Pathfinder 2 that actually the technology level of Galarian is probably almost equivalent to the same one as Eberron. Yeah. You know, Kalishtar, Warforged, you know, there are a couple of races that you might need to either just adopt from a different ancestry and make it into something new, or just create one out of whole cloth, or like I said, just take another ancestry and sort of reskin it. So that's what I would do. I love Eberron. I love Keith Baker. I love Order of the Stick. That I had I don't know. I never know where anything is. Oh, here we go. Here we go. This is one of my a magnet that I bought from him a long time ago. There we go. Belcar, the halfling from Order of the Stick. Awesome. What does the conversion notes at the $10 Patreon level? Jerry asking the hard questions. Okay, well, what is going to happen eventually? At this point, everyone who's been a member will be a long time. I've been converting Rise of the Runelords 2nd edition. I have a bunch of hastily written notes and scribbled stuff of converting the encounters from 1st edition, Rise of the Runelords, to 2nd edition, Rise of the Runelords. And I have promised my champion tier patrons that they will receive those conversion notes. I just want to pretty them up, you know, make them, put them into like the Pathfinder 2 formatting to make it nice, make it a nice like PDF or product that you can use at your table alongside with the Rise of the Runelords adventure path, whether it's the individual volumes or the anniversary edition, and just sort of convert that and use that along the way. At this point, the adventure path, I haven't even converted the 4th adventure yet because we haven't even gotten to the 4th adventure yet. You know, Fortress of the Stone Giants. So at this point, the champions are owed Burnt Offerings, Skinsaw Murders, and Hook Mountain Massacre. So yeah. Swing Ripper says, Twilight is a harem anime, but for girls, don't at me. I don't even know what that means, so I won't. How much backstory do you want from your players as a GM? Very little. I think backstory belongs in the background. I think coming to the table with some interesting ideas is fine, but I think getting too caught up on your backstory is problematic. I really think you should be more focused on telling interesting stories in the here and now. So how much is too much? I would say anything more than a couple paragraphs for me, honestly, is too much. What are your opinions about life path character generation? I assume you mean from Pathfinder? I think it's interesting. I think it generates a lot of backstory that may or may not be used. You may have to leave me a note specifically about what more you're specifically talking about. But I think if it's random and it forces you to play something that isn't maybe the most optimal thing, and it gets you thinking about your character and who they are and what their motivations are and what they care about, and you know, I think that's a great thing. Do you prefer D&D 4E or Pathfinder 2nd edition? That's an interesting question. I think, okay, Pathfinder 2nd Edition is better. The 4th Edition D&D, in my opinion, is the better designed game. Like, I like the way that 4th Edition works, but Pathfinder 2nd Edition, they actually, the math and the numbers and the way that it's supposed to work works the way that it is intended. 4th Edition had a lot of math problems. Some of their monsters were off. They changed the rules on skill challenges like 3 different times. There was a ton of errata because they never got it right. They had to introduce all these feats to try to fix math issues that got crept into the game. And these feat taxes that basically didn't really make you better. They just kept you on par. So 4th Edition is flawed in that regard. But 4th Edition, Pathfinder 2nd Edition is like, wants to be 4th Edition. It wants to be the game. But everybody knows that 4th Edition got, hung out to dry because it took an approach of saying, look, this is a game. We're going to make it readable. We're going to make it like a manual, like a textbook, not even like a textbook, right? Like, we're just going to make this very clean and modern and easy to use and interface with. And we're going to break everything into very, very structured powers and packages. And I really appreciate that. Makes it easier to use at the table. May not have been as enjoyable to read, when you're sitting in front of a fire drinking a glass of whiskey, but a lot of times usability trumps that. And as an example, like 4th Edition got a lot of, flack for having at-will powers and encounter powers and daily powers. And everyone gave it crap because they said it felt like a video game. Well, in Pathfinder 2, you have cantrips, focus point spells, focus spells, and spell slot spells. And those are literally at-wills, encounters, and dailies. So Pathfinder 2 is actually doing a lot of the same things that 4th Edition did. They're just not taking that extra step to basically make it as usable and readable in the name of being still kind of like RPG-y, which I guess means poorly edited and hard to read at times. So, and I won't, it's difficult for me to pick up 4th Edition and play it at the table right now because I understand how much errata goes into the game, and without and because 4th Edition isn't really supported even by Wizards of the Coast, there's no online tools for it because it wasn't released under the OGL. It was released under the GSL, which basically meant you couldn't, there's no SRD. You can't like reference it like the way you can with any other D20 game. And so it's really tough to get to the table now. You can play it with the books, but then you're going to have a lot of those problems that may not even be apparent to you. But if you've played the game as long as I did, I know what the problems are, and it's kind of a bear to fix them as you play through it. Let's see. So that's how far behind I'm in the chat. Rules Lawyer. They're saying the same things in the Rules Lawyer Discord. The two worlds fighting each other. Do I get to play 2 characters if I have one in each West March? I mean, I think you'd have to, right? Except like it's the same spirit, it's the same soul. So like, it's like your character's alter version of them in that universe. I don't know. It's kind of sweet. Let's see. Monster Hearts. When? Soon. Very, very, very soon. Look at me. I had a light convergence there. Wester March. There's some things that I am going to do to our version of the game, which I think will take it away from some of the West March's concepts. I also think that Pathfinder 2nd Edition, there are some elements of that game that make certain elements of West Marches difficult to do. Like the original West March had that big component of kind of survival, wilderness survival element to it. And with Pathfinder 2nd Edition, that's not as much of a big issue because it's just so easy to get back your hit points and it's relatively easy to recover from your conditions. So survival isn't as interesting of a concept in Pathfinder 2nd Edition as it might be in another version of role-playing games. Let's see. I'd love to see NoNet in the Discord. He's a really great hype man. NoNet is more excited about everything than I am about anything. So I agree with that. He's been very, very good for the game. He's been really good for the community, and I respect the guy for publishing constantly. So good on him. And you know, and he makes some good points. I mean, sometimes he puts some silly stuff out there, but you know, he's pretty excited about stuff. Anthony says that's so cool. It's true. I can be, you know, a bit of a frumpy, gloomy Gus, Debbie Downer. I don't always like everything. I think some things are good. I think some things are great. I think some things are just okay, and I think some things are just bad. So, aloha. That's probably any ancestry that's so cute is banned from my games. It's probably I don't really care that No Nat's saying it, but it's probably a safe play for me as well. All right. No, I have definitely not. I do not like the Leshy. All right. I think I'm getting almost caught up here. All right. So here we go. What are my thoughts on the OSR? Well, I like the style. It is a very rules-light, expressive way to play the role-playing game. It is lower on that sort of gamist element. I like playing games. I like playing complicated board games. I like mechanics, and I like crunchy things. The OSR is purposefully very light on that to give the GM infinite flexibility. So I like that approach. I think that the OSR, some of the products have gotten a little bit off the mark. But I mean, I own Labyrinth Lord. I have Osric, Swords and Wizardry. I own a bunch of stuff. Now, some of the newer stuff that's come out, which I have not gotten a chance. I have Axe, Adventure of Conquer King system. That I just picked up. I don't know where any of my books are. I just got this earlier this year, or later last year, I guess would be. It's Worlds Without Number. I always liked the Stars Without Number system. But some of the newer stuff has been really interesting. That a lot of people in the Discord who are really into OSR style play have been really, really talking about, like, what's it called? The Garden of Yin, I think is the one, which is like a really, really weird OSR-esque, but it's done in a very mechanically interesting way. And really trying to take it to the next level. So I do like some of the stuff that's coming out, but I think just repeating and rehashing a basic OSR game is kind of gotten a little long in the tooth. I think we have enough of those. Let's see here. Dragon marks could make a better free archetype. I guess it depends on how much impact you want the dragon marks to have. I mean, you do get ancestry feats. So the ancestry feats could represent you empowering those dragon marks and really tie it to your ancestry as opposed to like a class decision. Clarence talking here about non-human ancestries like bugbears and cat folks. I think it's just whatever floats your boat. The anthropomorphic animal thing has just never been something that I think is cool. And I think it's weird. I don't know why. It's never been something that's been huge for me. And it's funny because I actually really like the Mouse Guard game, which is sort of set in the world of Mouse Guard, but it's like a Redwall type game where it's like you literally have animals, mice that are like, talking. But they're not mice people. They're just mice. But William Brandis says, don't let me talk shit. I played a lizard in EverQuest and I love it. Yes, I did play an Ixar in EverQuest. They were like lizard people, like legit lizard people. They weren't like, oh, I'm a person, but I have cat ears. That's what I don't like. has anyone played the pug race? The Shoonies are great. No, they are not. You know what? If there was an ancestry that I disliked more than the Leshy or the Poppet, it might be the Shoonie. So, a Galarian, and that's what makes role-playing games so great, right? Like, if you are using them in your table, that's great. My contention, though, like I like to go with the flow. The game system gives you certain levers, and it gives you certain ways to play it, and a lot of these games do not have the appropriate levers for backstory. So let me give you a better example. If we were playing a game like Fate, and in Fate, you were creating backstory to your character, and each of those backstory elements became an aspect in Fate. And then during the course of play, mechanically, I had a way, you, the GM had a way, me, the player had a way to mechanically tag that aspect, spend a fate point, empower that aspect, and bring it mechanically into being. Or as a GM, I could say, hey, I am going to tag and compel that aspect tied to your background. Here's why your background is causing you a problem now, and give you a fate point in exchange for that sort of narrative complication. That is a very different set of circumstances. In a game like Pathfinder 2, those mechanics don't exist. And so while I'm not saying that backgrounds are problematic in Pathfinder 2, what I am saying is they do nothing. And so they are essentially and inherently a distraction from what the game is about, which is these mechanics that we are playing with. And so for me, it's really all about the type of game that I want to play. Pathfinder 2, like D&D 5th edition, is a game about heroic adventuring. It's about kicking ass and taking names. There's a reason why there's hundreds of feet for combat, why defeating a foe can involve dozens and dozens of attack rolls, strike rolls, aid actions, flanks, frightens, demoralizes, spell debuffs. But per the rules of the game, convincing someone to help you is one diplomacy check. They do that because that is the type of experience that the game is trying to empower. Can you do something differently? Of course you can. You could work backstories into your game of Monopoly, right? My top hat, he started off, he came from a lower middle class family, but he was always really smart. And he went to college, but he decided that really wasn't for him because he had more street smarts than book smarts. And now, he promised himself when he was young, he used to go down the street and he would see Boardwalk and Park Place. And so I'm going to play this game of Monopoly, and it's really going to be my goal to get Boardwalk or Park Place because, that's my character's backstory. Horizon Thunder Sphere. All right, Ben, ask for a Horizon Thunder Sphere. Ask for a Horizon Thunder Sphere, and I will deliver. I need to make more of those. I have this Stream Deck. I need get a whole soundboard going. So, anyways. My point is, you could add a backstory to Monopoly, and you could play Monopoly with this backstory influencing the way that you play the game of Monopoly. But Monopoly doesn't give a shit. And your backstory and Monopoly do not talk to one another. And quite frankly, they don't matter. Now, could you put it in there? Yes. That might make the game for you and your friends who play Monopoly a lot more fun. And in that case, I guess you should do it. But I question when someone's playing Monopoly that way, whether they're playing the right game. And so that's kind of where my thought process is there. Domble says life path means traveler style character creation. Oh, okay. Well, I love the character. I love the character creation in Traveler. So I think that's, again, a cool mechanical way of bringing your character's backstory to light. I mean, Pathfinder 2e does this to a certain extent, right? With your ancestry, your background, your class, and then your other stuff. But saying, oh, my character he started off as just a merchant on a space freighter. Okay, and that gave him +2 to trade and +2 to space piloting. Then, the merchant ship that he was on crashed on this like crazy planet, and he had to survive on his own for a few years, like Tom Hanks in Castaway. And so now I took the, hermit background, and that gave me a +2 to survival and a +1 to fighting, right? Like doing something like that, I think is much more interesting. And I think that's really, really cool. And it's a lot of fun. Yeah. So life path, use a lot of different games, different choices, points of life. Those I think are awesome. Those I think are a lot of fun. That to me is way more interesting than anything that 5th edition or Pathfinder 2nd edition does. So really, really, really love that. I kind of stole the life, I guess you would call it the life path system. I think it was called like the Path of Destiny or something from the Rogue Trader game, which was part of the Warhammer fantasy Warhammer game system. But like Rogue Trader, I took like their life generation system and I modified it for a 4th edition game. It was a lot of fun. So really, really love it. Yeah, so it has a very rudimentary life path. Very, very rudimentary. 4E was ahead of its time. I think it would sell much better today. I still say part of it was branding. I've always said this before. If 4th edition D&D was called D&D Tactics or, something like that, I do think the game would have done a lot better. D&D 4th edition was revolutionary enough that it scared away all the old players, but it was too complicated to bring in all the new players like 5th edition did. And it really doubled down on that like MMO video game aspect, thinking that that's where the game was going to go. And it turns out it didn't. It turns out if you look at the way 5th edition is being played, it turns out people wanted a more rules light, easy, approachable game system. Although if you were to read Reddit, it seems like a lot of people have a lot of problems with 5th edition as well. So, yeah. So we played 4th edition. 4th edition came out in 2008. We started playing a campaign. We played 4th edition basically for almost 4 years straight. We kind of started to get sick of it. 4th edition was kind of already starting to die. The Essentials line had come out to try to fix it. Then, circa 2011, maybe 2010, I think, Pathfinder came out, and we said, wow, okay, let's go back to 3rd edition, but someone's still publishing it. That's Pathfinder. And that's how we ended up playing Pathfinder for a long time. And then when 5th edition came out, we kind of said, thank you, next. And we kind of started with Pathfinder. So we basically played Pathfinder for close to like Pathfinder 1, but basically is our main game for like close to 8 years, while we waited for Pathfinder 2 to come out. So we played some other games in there, but yeah, Matt Colville may be the only person still playing it. Yeah, his assets on Fantasy Grounds are pretty sick. It's literally lost tech. Yeah, and I used to have, before D&D Beyond, right? I had like the D&D, whatever it was called back then. D&D Insider is what it was called. D&D Insider, and it was like the virtual subscription to Dungeon and Dragon magazine, but it also included the sort of character builder and the monster builder, which were sweet. Nothing short of playing at the table. Nothing I have ever done at role-playing games has ever been as much fun as making 4th edition monsters using the 4th edition monster builder. It was so awesome, and it was so much fun. I love the design of 4th edition monsters. Everybody should do it, and it's the way all games should be made. So, I already answered that question. Sorry. Am I almost caught up here? Let's see. I saw a question here about, do I like Earthdawn? I own 1st, 2nd, and 3rd edition of the game. I have the original FASA versions of the game, and I have the Red Brick or the Red Living Room, whatever it's called, Red Brick Room version of the game. Yeah, I think Earthdawn is incredible, and I think Earthdawn is a fantastic example of where the world and the mechanics of the game are very much integrated. and I'll talk about this a little bit in my Absalom book review, which I said will be released later this week. But a lot of times people build these fantasy worlds and the mechanics of the game don't make any sense in the context of this fantasy world that we're playing in. And in Earth Dawn, they do. So I really, really liked it. Also, I like the magic system a lot in Earth Dawn. Earth Dawn was like a really early adopter and really cool game to have like a social defense, a mental defense, a physical defense. So it had different ways to sort of mechanize the interaction of your character with different elements outside of just fighting. And as a young person playing first edition Earth Dawn, I thought that was really cool. And Earth Dawn had different races that weren't, that weren't your Tolkien races, with Obsidian and what are they called? Scrang. In fact, actually, my name of my Ixar lizardman in EverQuest was called Scrang or Scrang. Obsidian, Scrang. What else was there? Trying to remember all the weird races in Earth Dawn, but they felt better. They felt more integrated than just these random furries, I guess. Kieran asks, how many of those books are awesome, cool system that you'd love to play but never been able to? I have so many PDFs. I've had the opportunity between playing at conventions and having a very open, freewheeling, gaming group that kind of goes with the flow. Like we're playing Pathfinder 2, we're playing Legend of the Five Rings right now. We play some homebrew stuff, some homebrew systems. We've played Mutants and Masterminds, Blades in the Dark, Scum and Villainy. Like the same group that I'm playing Pathfinder 2 with right now, I also play Legend of the Five Rings with, and we played 5th edition D&D with last year, and Scum and Villainy, which is a Forge in the Dark group, Forge in the Dark game. So I'm very, very, very blessed to have a very open-minded gaming group who also like exploring the game space and are basically just down to have fun and hang out and play games. So, I mean, obviously, it's a hobby for me. It's a lifestyle. So I own games, too, that I enjoy reading and will never play. But for me, as sort of a tinkerer, I'm always trying to steal or crib things and put it into, my next game. So, sprites. Yes. Yes. Sprites are very awesome. We definitely had a sprite. Trolls. Trolls were really cool. I forgot about them. They weren't called, in Earth Dawn, they were called Windlings. Windlings. That's it. Okay. Damien says he thinks fate aspects should be in every game. I agree. It's a role-playing game. Not role-playing game. One word. Role-playing game. It's one phrase. Yeah. Animal race tier list when? Soon. Whenever you guys ask for it. Galarian says Monopoly TTRPG. I'm down. All right. What do we got here? Derek's group is the exact opposite of the people I know. Yeah, I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because my group of friends, like, we're not like the most super intense role players of all time. So it always makes me interesting about how awesome my group has been with. Now, again, we're not the best role players. We're not the best, game players. We don't always take the games as seriously maybe as we should, but we have a very open attitude. We love to get together and have fun and play dice. Everybody's pretty much just down to have fun. I mean, I guess in that respect, we just kind of focus on the, hey, like let's learn a new game. Bob says he's pretty much the opposite of Derek, but I play in a lot of his games. Also true. So, yeah, I think, part of it is, I've mostly been the DM for my group for the last 20 plus years. Of course, William Brandis in the chat has been the other main DM for our group. And both he and I have sort of, especially me, have been on like a quest, right? Like for the ultimate role-playing game, right? The ultimate answer to the life, the universe, and everything. And so me trying different RPGs is sort of like trying to find that sweet spot. And understand all these mechanics to really find something. It's not in my nature to just be totally satisfied with something. So every time I play a game, things start to chafe at me and bother me, and I inevitably start wondering like how I might change something. In fact, one of my worst habits is, I won't even play a game system and I'll start house ruling it. So like I've tried to get better at that. Like we're playing Legend of the Five Rings and I haven't made any house rule changes yet because I wanted to play it for, 5 sessions or 6 sessions before I start making house rules. So I am getting, somewhat better than that. With the change at the Hasbro helm, only a matter of time before we've seen D&D Monopoly. Absolutely. I can't believe it's not already there. That reminds me a little bit of what I was saying earlier, which is just, I think you're going to see Monopoly, like D&D become Monopoly, right? Which is, Monopoly's a horrible game. The mechanics of it, and rightfully so, it's really old. And when they didn't know how to make games back then. And they haven't tried to fix the rules of Monopoly, like ever. And it's because the people who buy Monopoly don't care about playing Monopoly, right? They buy it because it's a cultural touchstone or it's an expression of how it's a Harry Potter Monopoly. So I'm buying it, not because I care about Monopoly. I'm buying it because Harry Potter is slapped on the front. And my fear is that's what's going to happen to Dungeons & Dragons. That it's going to become a brand property and not a game. And that the motivation behind its implementation won't be to make great games, but to make a great brand. And it makes me sad. I'm playing Pathfinder 2 right now as my main game, obviously with this channel, and talk about it all the time. But D&D is, that's my heart. My initials are DM. I'm not a game master. I'm a dungeon master. And, I don't know. I understand why they're doing it, and it's a business. And it just makes me sad because, I don't always agree with the game decisions that they make, but I like that they were trying to move the game forward and move it into interesting directions. So it's unfortunate that it seems like we're, going to go backwards about that. Galarian in depth asks, repeat question. Sorry. If I missed anybody's question, I'm sorry. We'll figure it out in the long term. Super chat me if I missed your question. How do you feel about secret roles? Do I use them or roll in the open? I hate secret roles. I roll in the open. So how do I feel about them? I hate them. Do I use them? No. That's that. I could go into the details about that, but I think rolling dice is fun, and I like for my players to roll the dice. And I don't really care if they know that they don't know something because it's a role-playing game, and I don't really particularly care one way or the other. So I'd rather have, in fact, if it was up to me, my favorite game systems, and when I play a game system and I like it, if it doesn't have this mechanic, I start thinking of ways that I could change it. I want my players to roll all the dice. All the dice. And Pathfinder 2 is actually designed in such a way that you can do this remarkably easy. All you have to do is turn all spells that have a DC into spell attacks. It's just sometimes they target armor class, sometimes they target reflex DC, the person's reflex DC, which is just 10 plus their reflex save. Fort DCs, 10 plus their fort save. And then armor class for the players becomes, you subtract 10, and it becomes a defense bonus, right? So you just ignore the part where you add 10. You just, take their armor and dex, and you add their item bonus, and you add the proficiency bonus, and then you just roll D20. So when I attack my player, I might say, the ogre brings up his massive club and brings it down, smashing upon you, and I roll the damage right there in the open, and I say, for 8 damage. I don't know what it would be in Pathfinder. For 15 damage. And then the player says, I'm going to try to leap out of the way. They roll their defense. I say, okay, the defense check is DC 27. By the way, that's just 10 plus the monster's attack bonus. They roll. If they succeed, guess what? It's a miss. If they fail, guess what? It's a hit. And guess what? If the player rolls a critical failure on their defense check, that just means it was a critical hit, and the monster does double damage. So the player says, I try to leap out of the way of the monster's attack. And I go, oh, okay, DC 27. And the player rolls and they go, oh no, I rolled really low. I got a 15. And I go, oh no, you fail by 10 or more. It's a critical hit. You try to leap out of the way, but you mistime it. The blow goes sailing over your head, and then the creature brings it back down, square into your back. Critical hit, double damage. So, yeah, I don't like rolling dice at all. I got enough stuff to worry about. What do I need to be rolling dice for? And Galarian says that he agrees with me. Great. GM Scott says, talk about failing the knowledge checks. It's the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. More than I dislike Poppets, more than I dislike Leshies, more than I dislike Shoonies, I hate the critical failure line from the recall knowledge skill in Pathfinder 2. Remove this from your game. Just remove it from your game. In fact, if it was up to me, the way recall knowledge is, because again, we talked about this at the very beginning of the live stream, knowledge is asking questions and getting information back is how players make good decisions or decisions at all in your game. When you deny them that, you are putting your game in peril. You're making your players feel hopeless, helpless, incapable of making any sort of decisions. It's a horrible experience. So when they are engaging with your game and saying, I want to make a recall knowledge check, and then you punish them by saying, you don't know anything, or, oh, you think that the legends say that the temple lies far to the west, even though it lies far to the east. You're just shooting your game in the foot. It's so stupid. Good night, Loth. Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate you being here, buddy. Haha, it was a lie. You're actually dead. Yeah, so. I mean, yes, of course, we can talk about this offline. But you've mentioned that you like taking rules from various games. Anything you'd snatch from PF2E? The main thing that I really like from Pathfinder 2nd Edition is if you are playing a game where there's an ability or a way to accumulate bonuses, being able to get a critical hit for exceeding a target number by a certain number of points feels really good. It feels like you're not wasting your accumulation or your bonuses. So I do like that rule. Let's see. What else do I really like about Pathfinder 2nd Edition? As a concept, the interaction of the free archetype system, not necessarily like the ability for you to have sort of like a main class and then kind of a secondary class that sort of advances in parallel along with your main class. I really, really like that. I like that they distinguish between sort of combat feats through your class and then sort of here are skill feats which do something different. I think skill feats need some help. I think they need some love. I'd love to produce a Knights of Last Calls skill feat series where we just make some PDFs. Maybe something to give to the patrons for, supporting us and doing everything for us. But yeah, like I like that parallel advancement. So I like some of those elements for sure. All right. That's your issue with the Shoonie. My issue with the Shoonie is that they're little dog people. All right. Well, I finally made it to the bottom of the chat, everybody. So, I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited for this new year. I think we're gonna have a lot of fun with the game. I am really, really interested in understanding how we can make this Western Marches game work. I'm really interested to see what the Rudy and the rules lawyer people come up with. in terms of making it work for their game. I think it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be an interesting way to explore the game system. I think there's a couple of changes that we're gonna have to make in order to make it work, so that the threat and the some of the elements still work, given that it's Pathfinder 2. But I do think that it'll really help build up our community, and I think that's going to be a whole lot of fun. I am also very, of course, curious and interested to see what Paizo comes out with, and if we're going to see anything from D&D 5.5 as the year rolls on. But I am now that they've gotten everything out for Pathfinder, I'm wondering if they're going to take a different tack and slow things up. I should also note, like I said this, I think earlier today, maybe it was in the Discord, but I think I think Rise of the Rune Lord might be the last 1 through 20 campaign I ever run. It's just when you're not playing, when I was a kid, we used to play sometimes 2-3 times a week, and we'd play for 4 or 5 hours, and so we'd get through 10, 20 hours of content a week. Now some of my groups meet every other week, or they meet once a month. Just doing like a 20 level campaign is just so hard now. And, Paizo is releasing Quest for the Frozen Flame, and I'm kind of excited about it. I think it's a cool area of Golarion. It's different, right? It's not just like your standard boilerplate fantasy world. It's something distinctly unique. It's very, in my opinion, it's very reminiscent of the wildlings from Game of Thrones, who sort of live north of the wall in this sort of Arctic, land to be free, and they live with giants and big mammoths, kind of just like the wildlings in Game of Thrones. And I think that'd be a lot of fun. And it's a 1 through 10 campaign, which I much prefer to a 11 through 20 campaign. And so it's like we're trying to figure out a way if we can maybe get that played out there. Maybe that's something we can even do for the channel. That might be something that being live and remote enables us to do, because we can just get together quicker and sooner. Is there an evil version of your group out there that are really early to the bar and called the rogues of First Call? What would that be? I mean, obviously, I don't know if they're evil. We might be the evil ones, right? Like, we're kind of the mischievous people. I don't know if you followed our AP. The Knights of Last Call aren't always the most up and up people. Are you planning to make something on YouTube for the West Marches, like a weekly recap of what happened? Yeah, I mean, that might be kind of fun, right? Or maybe at least a community post just to let everybody know. I mean, let's talk business here, right? Like, if we have a really great community game going on, I want people to know about it, because it'd be awesome for people to join our Patreon, support the channel, and throw a little money our way and be a part of it, right? And so, I don't want to like turn it into some cheesy advertising platform, but I mean, I do think it'd be cool to share with the community and talk about some of the challenges that, that the players are overcoming without spoiling too much. So, Rules Lawyer says that, all right, great. Sounds good. Feel free to beg, borrow, steal. Yeah, I'll take a look. I'll shoot you some of my thoughts if you're interested, because, I think it's a really cool idea. I mean, the one thing that I am doing is I am going to be, and I think we have at least one other person from the Discord who's volunteering. We are going to be like Overlord GMs. So we're going to have like 3 tiers. We're going to have like players, GMs, and then the sort of Overlord GM. And I am going to have like the one master map. And because I don't want to ruin a GM's ability to be a player. And so our idea is that if someone wants to build an adventure over here in the Whispering Wood, the Overlord GM, will give them a certain amount of latitude and information about that region. They can build that out. They can explore that. They might know some more stuff about that area. But then if they, as a player, want to go explore over here in the Foreboding Foothills, that's all new to them. That's all brand new to them. They probably don't know much of anything about that. And so they can still have that fun experience of being a player.
Jason B tipped $10. You succeed at your stream check. Oh, you want to use a hero point? Okay, you critically fail. Your YouTube channel gets deleted.
Yeah, that's a great point. We did a podcast this last weekend, so hopefully gonna be out this week. If you haven't checked out our podcasts, Knights of Last Call, Spotify, Apple, Google. This one's gonna be like 2.5 hours long, I think. But we get into this a little bit. But we had another TPK on Friday in the group that I'm playing in. And it was because of hero points. So hero points actively killed our party, using them, that is. And it really highlighted the reason why I made my hero point rule the way I did make why I changed my hero point rule to what I did, even though it is very powerful, and I completely admit that. But I was like, yes, I felt very justified in my decision to make them. Will really enjoys the podcast. Awesome. Will, we really enjoy making it. It's I wish we could get together and film it more often, do it more often, mostly because if you can't tell, it's totally unscripted, but we just kind of talk for a couple hours until we have enough to drink and we're hungry and we want to get something to eat. It's literally how that works. But I noticed when when I started getting into podcasts, I was like, man, there's just not a lot of podcasts out there that really actually just talk about role-playing games. There's a lot of them that do like specific product reviews. There's tons of actual plays. But I kind of wanted to just, I don't know, shoot the shit RPG style. And that's kind of what I wanted my podcast to be. And I don't know about all the rest of you, but again, I have a friend group that is very active and engaged with role-playing group games. And now, before it used to be, my 6 closest friends and I, and we would get together and chat in our own Discords, or before a session or after a session, we would chat for hours and hours and hours about role-playing games of all types. But now I get to do that basically 24/7 through our Patreon Discord. But it's still fun to be able to get together with some of my friends and share a whiskey or a bourbon and chat about RPGs. Kieran asks, what was the interesting news in the TTRPG space that you alluded to at the beginning of the speech? So the interesting news was that this is old news, but the CEO of Hasbro died last fall. And they just announced that the person who's been heading up Wizards of the Coast for the last several years is going to be the new CEO of Hasbro. So basically the board of Hasbro said, hey, we love what you've done with the Wizards of the Coast subsidiary with D&D, with Magic the Gathering. We think what you're doing is a good job, and we're going to put you in charge, which means, number one, that suggests that the board is very happy with the direction that Dungeons & Dragons is going, but it also means that they need a replacement for him. So potentially you're going to have a new person in charge at Wizards of the Coast, which could mean changes for D&D and for Magic the Gathering. But as Professor Dungeon Master said in his really great video, the fact that they're making him CEO suggests they probably don't want anything to change. So if anything, they want to probably double down on what they've been doing. And in my personal opinion, what does that mean? Well, if you look at Magic and you look at D&D, the focus over the last couple of years has been, number one, digital. Move into a digital space. Move away from paper and embrace digital. Find ways to increase digital offerings and find ways to increase revenue flows through digital offerings. You've seen this with Magic the Gathering Arena. You've seen this with the dissolution of the Pro Tour. You've seen this with D&D Beyond. And so that's one. Number two, increase broad market appeal. A lot of people, the Magic the Gathering sets have started to include a lot of more broad spectrum type appeal. They just did a set called Strixhaven, which is very Harry Potter inspired. They did a Dungeons and Dragons set, trying to get some cross reference from that. When they did Ikoria, they included Godzilla and Mothra and Mecha Godzilla. They did a Secret Lairs product with people from The Walking Dead. This is all nonsense garbage stuff that has no right to be in Magic the Gathering. They are just literally throwing whatever they can in there to increase that broad market appeal. Number three, make it more kid-friendly. They want children playing these games, right? They've gotten their money from me. I'll be dead soon in their minds. Like, they want to raise the next crop of gamer, of customer, of consumer. And so what does that mean? Well, it means the games need to be digestible, easy, not disturbing, childlike, friendly, more cute stuff, more animal stuff, more superhero stuff, because those are what kids like. So, Magic the Gathering wants to be Pokemon, and D&D wants to be Disney. So that's That's what I think is. That's what I think the future of D&D is. Cian, thank you for listening to the podcast and background at work. We appreciate it. It's a lengthy ordeal, but I'd love to get more podcasts out there. Maybe I'd like to set a minimum 2 a month. That would be the goal. Yeah, and then the other news is that Microsoft bought Blizzard Activision for $68 billion, but I haven't cared about video games in a long time. I thought I was going to get into Diablo 3. I played it for like a week, and then I stopped playing it. I played the crap out of StarCraft 2 when it first came out, and then there was like balance issue changes in Heart of the Swarm, and then I stopped playing, and I really haven't played ever since. So, yes. Damien says, embrace digital and charge 4 times for it. It's a great business model. They've made more money than they ever have. So obviously it works. And, that's what gets done in capitalism. So, yes. When we talking about Monopoly TTRPG, this isn't exactly what I had in mind. Yeah, well, it's coming. During 2020, I love buying a physical book, then buying it on D&D Beyond, and then buying it again on Roll20. It was like so cool. Yeah, but it's fantastic for them. It makes them just a crap load of money, and it shows their record profits, record revenue. So, yikes, that's grim. Sorry. I mean, the good news is nobody can trademark a game mechanic. So, there's going to be other people producing games. Kickstarter exists. Indie publishers exist. If you don't like the direction that D&D is probably going to end up going, there's a lot of other, that's a lot of other options. This is why the damn Shuni, unless you're creeping in. Yes. People like that style. And, we are very much moving away from this, and that could be a good thing. If you don't like this, right? If you think the Lord of the Rings films are boring and you would rather watch One Piece than, modern day RPGs are going to be more and more catering to you. Well, it certainly destroyed Magic the Gathering from my point of view. As someone who used to be like a quasi-professional player, in the sense that I played like 30 or 40, GPs and stuff a year, but never actually really made any money, other than a few min cash finishes here and there and a couple top 8s to my name. But I mean, I got out of the game just because it was clear to me that they weren't interested in making a good game. So the process of the Magic the Gathering, the process of Wizards of the Coast used to be, if we make the best possible game and we focus on that, we will be rewarded in the marketplace with customer growth, customer retention, and sales. And what they realized under this guy who's now the CEO of Wizards of the Coast, or of Hasbro, actually it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People don't care as much about the game of Magic as they do the brand of Magic. And that's why you went from 4 or 5 Magic releases a year with a couple of well-formatted, well-designed sets to, I think, in 2020 or 2021, there was something like 18 to 19 or 20 different release products made, and they were everything. There was secret, super select, now there's collector's boosters, and there's super secret collector's boosters, and box toppers, and secret layer products, and they've just thrown a lot of garbage out there because they don't care about the game anymore. They just care about the sales. And the customer? Well, the customer doesn't care about the game either. Again, the people who are buying their 5th copy of Monopoly because, oh my God, they made a Fortnite version of Monopoly. The parents who are buying their kids Fortnite Monopoly aren't buying it because they think Monopoly is a good game. And hell, most people probably aren't even going to play the game Monopoly, or they might even just own the base core set of Monopoly. They're buying it because of their fandomness. And it's a lifestyle, not a game. D&D is going to become the same way. And Mike Merle, in his video, Professor Dungeon Master included a quote from Mike Merles talking about how that's been their objective with D&D. And now you have people who watch Critical Role but have never played Dungeons & Dragons. You have people who might be wearing a D20 shirt or have a dice tattoo who don't even play role-playing games. The same way that you have people who wear Harley-Davidson merch who don't own a motorcycle. And that's what D&D is becoming. So, yeah, it sucks. I feel bad. I feel badly for you. I can't complain. Like I lost my job a bunch of years ago, and I tried to start my own business, and I funded it all through Magic the Gathering cards. I sold my Power 9, my Black Lotus, my Moxen. I sold a bunch of dual lands when my business started to tank during COVID. And it basically funded my life for a couple years while I was trying to start a business and then watch that business fail due to COVID. And I had a lot of great times traveling around, grinding for the Pro Tour. It was awesome. But the way the game is now, I just don't have the same interest in it. So it is unfortunate. Oh my gosh. I just saw this. Oh, MTG and NFT. I can't believe this is not already a thing. I honestly can't believe. I wouldn't be surprised if we see D&D NFTs. Anything to make money. It's just becoming a cash grab. I mean, it should have been a cash grab. In fact, you could argue it was always should have been a cash grab, and it never was. That's why TSR went out of business. That's why Wizards of the Coast bought D&D, and they treated it like it was their pet instead of treating it like it was a business. Fortnite Monopoly is definitely a thing. I told my daughter if she ever played Fortnite, I wouldn't allow her anymore. Listen, Fortnite, I've seen the game. I've never played it, but it seems like a fine premise, right? It's PlayerUnknown Battleground plus Minecraft, which is like two really popular games, right? And let's just combine them into one thing. That's fine. But it becoming like a cultural phenomenon and people spending hundreds of dollars on skins and Fortnite merch and memorabilia. And it's like, do you even play Fortnite? Do you even care about Fortnite? No. Then what are you doing? Yeah. Someone said, stop giving them ideas. Yes, Anthony, stop giving them ideas. So isn't this the reason a lot of us play Paizo games? Well, I mean, if you like the game engine, if you like 5th edition, you should be playing 5th edition. And the beautiful thing about it is they can't take your rule books from you unless you go only digital, which is what I talked about in Pathfinder Nexus. The books on my shelf, you can't take them from me. So I can still play those games, but if you have your books all tied up in a D&D Beyond and you never bought a D&D rule book in your life, and Wizards of the Coast decided they needed to retire those books, you'd be shit out of luck. So, yes. I mean, Critical Role is very cool. It's a tens of millions of dollars a year business. That is way more than a quarter. I mean, that's huge. They have a lot at stake. I mean, I can't even imagine how that would affect me if, I was getting paid millions of dollars to run a D&D campaign. It'd be crazy. And you can see that, by the way. In the Patreon Discord, I went on a really long rant with the new Campaign 3 Season 3 opener. It was so self-indulgent. Like, they are basically saying, this isn't about our party, and it's not about being adventurers anymore, right? Which is, like, if you think about the opening to Season 2 or Season 1, but Season 2's animated intro was awesome. And unless some of the stuff they did with the Vox Machina stuff, and certainly the stuff they did with the Mighty Nine, and it was still kind of tongue-in-cheeky, but it was more about like the characters and the adventure and the campaign. But the new intro is all about them and the Critical Role community. It's basically saying this isn't a game anymore. This is it's like a cult. I don't know how to, what the right term. It's like a religion. It's a sense of belonging. You show up to Critical Role not to watch the game, but just to be part of the experience and to join the community. And that whole thing. So it is. It's corporate. It makes a lot of money, and it turns out that making a lot of money really is all about figuring out ways to appeal to your customers' emotions and then put a price tag on it. Campaign 3 has had a slow start. I was trying to watch it in the beginning, and boy, I got turned off. It was so slow. Even for them, it was very, very slow. So, well, that's a shame. I mean, if you started playing in 93 and then you stopped playing in 96 and you kept all those cards, well, then you won the game. You won that life because, you have all those games. Well, unfortunately, I believe they are putting Fortnite into Magic the Gathering this year, along with Street Fighter 2 and something else. But I definitely think Fortnite is they're going to have a Fortnite Secret Lairs MTG product. I do still have my 4th edition to play, and my 3rd edition, and my 2nd edition, and my 1st edition, and my basic. Yeah, I mean, my problem with a lot of game rules recently is I have come across a lot of games that feel, and this makes total sense, that feel, right? We talk about this in Night School about design and development. So like the design of a game is important because that's like saying, this is what we envision our game to be. These are the concepts and the themes that we want to talk about. We're not going to get into the nitty gritty and how everything works together. The design on a lot of these games has been sublime. Pathfinder 2 has incredible design. Legend of the Five Rings, role-playing game by Fantasy Flight Games, now Edge Studios, sublime design. But the development aspect of a lot of these games has felt a little undercooked. Like you're still going to eat the cookie, but like the middle part, a little bit cookie dough-ish. Some of these games are only, I feel like, 70, 80% cooked all the way through. And it feels like it just needed more time to sit down, play the games, experience what the game actually does and feels like and experiences like at the actual gaming table, and then take those lessons learned and apply them back to another round of development. And then repeat that cycle enough times to the point where you get to a point and you say, oh, okay, all right, this game actually works now. So, the opener, gosh, Karen, I wish you could have seen, I think my dogs are going crazy outside of this door. You should have seen my rant. It was epic. I was beside myself with how cringy and self-indulgent and horrible it was. Never seen Critical Role. Love Glass Cannon Podcast. Glass Cannon Podcast is like who I aspire to be, right? A bunch of friends who enjoy playing the game. For the most part, they don't take themselves too seriously. I think they could probably move around a little bit faster pace. But I really respect what the product that those folks are putting out. And so I think they are very good. Kieran talks about here the character art using the cast face on the character's body. It's all about the cast. And why not? That's who people are connecting to, right? It's a celebrity play. No one cares about us. You care about Asia Strongforge. Like, look, there's nothing wrong with being like, I like the way that Liam plays a character, or I like the way that Sam plays a character, but it's just become all, it's become like a TV show. All right. Well, we went over here by a little bit, but I did want to say thank you to everybody who stuck with us here. We had about 45-46 viewers in the chat, so I do want to say thank you to everybody who joined us here for this Q&A. I'd like to do, I'm going to keep doing our Spells and Magic series. We did 5 for the first couple ones, and now it should go a little bit faster, right? The spells lists shrink down as we get higher levels. So I think, I don't know, it might take us like 2 or 3 to get through level 2, 2 or 3 to get through level 3. Then I think we could start knocking out like level 4, probably in like one session, maybe 2, and then 2, and then 1. So I don't know, maybe like 15 more streams to get through all the spells of Pathfinder. Jeez. I do want to put out a video that kind of summarizes what our findings from level 1, sort of a breakdown, statistics, the distribution of the tiering. So we're going to keep doing those live streams again, starting February 1st. Don't hold me to this, but they also hold me to this. February 1st, Tuesday, 8 p.m., I think is our start time. We are going to be trying to do our first live stream, Rise of the Rune Lords AP, picking up where we left off, finish up the Hook Mountain Massacre, and, have that be part of our weekly offering as well. And, have a lot of fun with it. So, well, thank you. Atomic Hobo, thank you for the sticker. Thank you for the super chat sticker. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. And you've got what is my favorite, the Matt Burrell throwing a massive fireball icon. So appreciate you, Kieran. Thanks for some of the great questions. Love these informal discussions. I do too. This is what I love to do. I love to talk about RPGs. And, the last year I didn't get to go to Gen Con or Origins because of COVID. And normally I do this for like 8 days, 4 days straight and then 4 days straight. And I didn't get to do that. So I have to make it up with these live streams. Well, Will T, thank you. If we did this whole stream just to have you join our conversation, it was well worth it. Appreciate it. We'll see you there. And really, really thankful for your support, along with everybody else. And I want to end the stream by just saying a huge thank you to everyone who's been with us for these past few months, or even the whole time, basically, that we've been a monetized situation and channel. Unlike a lot of other channels, we do have some overhead costs because we have a studio and production equipment, because we try to keep it, we try to make it nice. And these fine folks have really pulled through and really supported us, and they make the game a lot more fun than it already was. And getting to experience the game and communicate with our patrons has really been a new level for me in terms of my involvement with this game, with this hobby, with this community. Years of being on...
Jason B tipped $10. Hey, want to see something?
Jason B tipping, asking if I want to see something. No, thanks, Jason. Believe it or not, I don't want to see something. Appreciate it. But yeah, years of being on Twitter and Reddit, especially during the rise of 5th edition, maybe it made me a little bit cynical. I didn't like 5th edition. It's a fine game, but it didn't grip me and grab me the way that I wanted it to. And, D&D, that's my heart. That's my soul. It left me feeling a bit adrift. And, Pathfinder 2 got me very passionate about the game. It's not a perfect game by any stretch of the imagination. And it doesn't do everything that I want it to do. But it did get me interested in the game. It got me interested enough to start this channel, and then to meet so many fine people. And again, a lot of people in our Discord don't even really play Pathfinder 2 as their main game. So, but getting to meet these people sort of renewed my faith in this RPG community, and that the fact that there are people out there who are passionate about these games without being like weird about it, and who share a lot of the same values that I do and kind of want the same experiences that I do out of a game, and are ultimately curious, ready to learn, ready to listen, ready to share. And these are all the things that I think are really important, not just to being a good game master or being a good player, but just being a good human being in general. So really want to thank our patrons, thank all of you for joining us today. And, we appreciate you, and we'll see you next time on Knights of Last Call.